In today's rant, B-Dubs takes initiative and also takes shots at Shadowdark. Catgirl has no clue about Tolkien. Rump DM puts BroSR tribal nihilism on display. Mr. Dune Trader aligns himself with stupidity. Welcome to intelligence as a dump stat. Hello guys, welcome to Driving and Dragons. This is our weekly takedown of some of the dumbest takes in TTRPGs and related pop culture for the past week. On the 280ZX, we have the continuing quest to repair the ignition, as well as a quick reassembly of the air intake. I've tracked the ignition issue down to a problem with a ground somewhere, so it will be off to the races with a multimeter trying to locate what I'm looking for. On the plus side, I found two good front fenders and possibly some cuts that I can get that will make the bodywork get done much quicker. So brakes, tires, body, and exhaust, this restoration is done. Then I can drive the car, and I can move on to the 81 Camaro that is sitting at my buddy's suspension shop. A matter of housekeeping here that will sound very familiar to those of us who watch a decent amount of TTRPG YouTube. We all hear every creator ask for a like, a share, and a subscribe on every video. Those are important, you should definitely do them, and they really help the channel grow. But more important, I think, than any of that is to make sure you take a second to grab a link to a video or playlist and share it on X or Facebook or D&D groups or hell, even Blue Sky. In particular, share a video or a playlist that is not something like Intelligence as a Dump Stat. Are you experienced? World Builder University? You're doing it wrong. Videos like these that are focused on more in-depth and meaningful TTRPG-related content and how to make gaming better get dozens of views, while tongue-in-cheek flame trolling like Intelligence as a Dump Stat or just simple drama mining gets hundreds or even thousands of views. On a big channel like Dungeon Craft, it's even more pronounced. A Wizards of the Coast shit the bed again video will rack up 6 figures in views, while a video about how to introduce your players to a new game or how to tweak your favorite system to do things a little better is going to end up in the 50K range. So do me, your favorite commentators, and the rest of the hobby a favor and grab a link to a non-drama related playlist or video and toss it in a Facebook group or on an X thread, especially if you can do it right after a new video drops in one of those playlists. But still share this video, because we all know dunking on boneheads is fun. On to the rant. We're going to kick things off in BroSR land. I know the bros end up here a lot, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that they're extremely opinionated about their one true wayism, and that leads to a lot of bad takes. Two is that I actually enjoy interacting with a lot of them, and they do have a lot of extremely good takes that are mixed in with their stupidity. So I kind of get algorithm locked with them. Third would be that more than anything else, the bros are an internet-focused club. They post constantly all day long on X, and they repost constantly, which amplifies them to the point that they match the visibility of profiles with much larger followings. So, if you are sick of the BroSR in this series, hit me up on X with links to stupid things that you think belong here instead. You can DM me at DanielDNDYT right there on X. I'll even add a timestamp below in the description and in the pinned comment, so you can skip straight past the BroSR should you choose. So what did our resident AD&D DudeBros do this time? Well, a lot actually, but I'm going to focus on two of them. First up is B-Dubs, the self-proclaimed heir of Jeffro Johnson. He went deeply into his suppressed story gamer roots to craft a tale about how Shadowdark is trash and how it isn't a good thing that Kelsey over at Arcane Library is amplifying one of the BroSR's core gaming ideals to an audience far broader and infinitely more receptive than he will ever have. He did this with a poorly formed allegory, a dozen posts long, about eating rocks and how mixing steak in rock soup didn't suddenly make rock soup good food. It's pretentious prattle from the king of pretense. I'm going to save you the trouble of digging this crap up. The only rocks are between B-Dub's ears. And seriously, just buy the blue check already. It's bad enough that you wrote so much and said so little. At least make it an easily ignored article. Then he decided it was time to attack individual initiative. Now, I've used both group and individual initiative over the years, and like all mechanics, there's benefits and drawbacks to both. In fact, if you think you kind of think that old Dubs would be all about the more simulationist nature of individual initiative. But of course, B-Dubs has to go straight to the extreme and say that individual initiative is the most destructive rule you can have in a D&D campaign. Well, B-Dubs, for a long time, individual initiative was the standard, and it worked just fine. It has been included either as a variant or as the main initiative rule basically since the very beginning. And I would be willing to bet that I have run longer campaigns using individual initiative than any campaign that B-Dubs has ever GM'd. It's one way of doing things. It has its advantages. And I know it's hard, but guys, please, the insane hyperbole shtick is getting real old, especially from B-Dubs. Last up in Broland is Rump DM. Now, Rump amuses me because he can't seem to decide if I'm supposed to inevitably join the BroSR and strengthen it immensely with my intellect and verbal acumen, or if I'm not a serious person and I'm supposed to spend my entire life in the soup aisle. Spoiler alert, the bros haven't learned yet that I run their entire damn grocery store, soup aisle and all. But this time, it's a comment that fully encapsulates why the bros are far more destructive in their mentality than they are supportive to the TTRPG hobby as a whole. A certain ignorant focus on the immediate and a lust for throwing the babies out with the bathwater is just rampant in the BroSR. This was about tariffs. Like them or hate them, there's no getting around that the new tariff policies in the United States will nuke the indie publishing market and pump the brakes hard on the development and distribution of new TTRPG products across the board. Mark Kern made a post on X outlining the tabletop industry's reliance on global trade and adding his voice to numerous others on how tariffs will damage the game scene as a whole. As a formally educated Austrian school economist myself, I feel that if anything, the doomsayers are being a bit optimistic. And I may put out a video on that topic later this week. But old Rump, he says this is fantastic. And maybe some people will play the games they already own. This stems from one of the BroSR's many conceits. They say that you can't have real knowledge and experience and not recognize how right they are. And then when you point out that that experience that they just discounted is inadequate, frequently saying that all these people buy game books and put them on a shelf in the background of a video but never read them or play them. They're just book collectors who never actually play games. This is hilarious coming from a group so perpetually online that it's a wonder they have time to play at all with all the tweeting they do. Here's the issue. The gaming industry isn't your four-banger Honda Civic shitbox that you can just go hit the switch and fire up or shut down as you will it. It's much more like a nuclear reactor. You shut it down, and it will need to cool off until it's completely dead before you expend the immense resources and energy to restart it. It can't just kind of partially shut down, crank back up partially. That's not how these kind of markets work. Once it's down, it's going to take a serious amount of effort to get it back up. The bros act like AD&D is all that matters, and since it is functionally out of print, who cares? But if the engine of the entire industry stalls and we go back, People who want to find AD&D books are going to be shelling out cash on eBay for books with stained and missing pages. And things like BroSR, forget it. When publishing prices skyrocket, nobody is going to want to take the chance of wasting precious resources on essays scribbled out by a bunch of trolls on X. Yeah, you can do just straight PDFs. But the ability to capitalize and make money is not going to be there, which means the incentive is not going to be there, which is going to drive out a lot of innovation and a lot of growth, and more importantly, a lot of marketing that keeps bringing new blood into the hobby and keeping it alive long term. Depending on how long these tariffs last, and depending on how hard they hit the industry with timing wise, you may see kind of a lost generation in gaming if it hits too hard and lasts too long. Stepping away from the BroSR, we get to hear from a German gaming enthusiast going by Mr. DudeBros. Now, I don't have a great deal of familiarity with Mr. DudeBros, and to be honest, his post is not by any means the worst on the subject, but dude had a big swing and a miss on alignment, and as we all know, alignment is one of my beloved soapboxes. He posted on X about the absolutism of alignment, stating that the removal of and criticism of alignment in Dungeons & Dragons stemmed from its perceived rigidity. He posted a screenshot from a TSR rule supplement that covered various giant races and their different views on alignment, and then he proudly proclaimed, quote, "It clearly shows a more relativistic approach to alignment as opposed to the perceived absolute one," unquote. Problem is that he completely misread the text and it does not say what he thinks it does. Alignment, in terms of how it functions as a game mechanic, is absolute and is rigid. It has a very clear and specifically defined objective definitions, and it absolutely must be that way in order to function in the game. Like any other rule or mechanic, it has to have an objective measure on the outside in the meta context. The problem is, just like a lot of the people who argue against alignment, they confuse the alignment mechanic on the outside in the metagame with alignment perceptions in game. And what the text actually says is that, quote, "Each of the giant breeds has its own concept of good and evil that stands outside the absolute alignment scale of the AD&D game," unquote. It then goes on to say that in the giant's eyes, the most evil act is betraying the tribe. But that, quote, "If a tribe of hill giants is planning to kidnap an elf princess and one of the giants flees to warn the elves," a good act in D&D game terms, "he is branded as Mog by his fellow giants," unquote. Mog, of course, being the giant word for evil. Look at what that says. The giant's concept of good and evil stands outside the absolute alignment scale of the AD&D game. This is not a condemnation of an absolute and rigid alignment system. It is further confirmation that alignments have objective black and white definitions in game. I'm going to use kind of a real world example here as to hammer this point home as kind of an analogy. The laws of physics say that two bodies will be pulled towards the center of mutual mass. So when I jump off a building, I plummet to the earth as our gravimetric center is somewhere deep in the core of the planet. Just because my society believes that falling is caused by the weight of my sins, and that if I repent right before I jump, I'll fly, that doesn't change the fact that gravity is still the objective truth, and I will still plummet to the ground and smash myself on the concrete. That's what this rule supplement kind of said. Telling the elves that the giants are plotting a kidnapping is a good act. Full stop, rigid, objective, no argument. That is good. However, that doesn't mean that the giants treat it as good acts, because they believe betraying the clan is the ultimate evil. They believe that but it doesn't make them right. All that piece says is that just because a giant has a good alignment and does good things doesn't mean that other giants will see their acts that way and vice versa. So yes, alignment is rigid, and it is supposed to be that way. Namely because if each individual gets a relativistic approach to the definition of the alignments, then alignment becomes mechanically irrelevant, or worse, it's actively detrimental. Moral relativism and alignment do not jive, folks. The best thing I can think of is apply it to a different mechanic. If a fighter is supposed to have a +5 attack bonus at level 5, and I come in and I'm like, well, that I know that the book says that, but to me, +5 really means +10, or to you, +2 really means +5. We have a serious disconnect here because that mechanically changes the game because I have redefined what the attack bonus is. It works the same way. The alignment system outside the game is a guide for how to role play your character, to tell you how to think. It is objective, and when you have mechanical considerations tied to alignment, such as class abilities and access to certain types of magic and whatnot, they absolutely must have an objective definition. Otherwise, I'm simply going to redefine what good and evil are based on my own perceptions anytime it's convenient in game. Wrapping up things is something that's not TTRPG related, but the obsessive Tolkien fanatic purist in me just can't let it slide. I do not know who this cat girl Kulak moron is, but Jesus Christ, are they completely up their own ass about J.R.R. Tolkien. When they went on a diatribe about the lack of romance and sex in the professor's work. They describe how the bad guys are evil simply for the crime of wanting something, and they talk about the lack of meaningful relationships and how it's filled with broken values that are morally, politically, and socially stunted. This entire thread was replete with the lowest IQ, postmodernist English grad student trying to be edgy and transgressive nonsense that you can imagine. You know the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Nobody said this before. I'm going to blow the lid off of this and completely change how people see this work with my essay. Well, Catgirl Numbskull, I got news for you. Sometimes the reason something has never been said before is because it is idiotic and everyone knows it, except apparently you. And I thought that the people who think Tolkien had transgender and homosexual allegories in his work were stupid. Cat Turd Kulak really takes the cake on this one. You managed to be dumber than the woke scolds. Anyway, that's enough brain damage for 1 week. What did I miss? Let me know in the comment section, and I'm going to go bleach my eyes.